Hello there! It's Lim Legion again, the Reddit Crusader, the downvote magnet, the bastion of truth and destroyer of Matt89 Connor, the scourge of all that's good in this world. I have returned from the depths of procrastination hell, and today I bring you a similarly structured video to my last talk about the state of For Honor, although this time I'm going to aim my ire mostly towards, you guessed it, the devs themselves. Or at least the corporate shenanigans that go on behind the scenes that probably influence some of the more bizarre and damning decisions that have been made throughout the life of this game. I'll get straight to the reason why I'm making this video, and it is absolutely related to the For Honor
Year of the Harbinger
announcement we recently got, which confirms to me that the dev team at this point are convinced that adding a ton of heroes, who might be poorly balanced or otherwise, emphasize how poorly balanced the other characters are to the game even more, without fixing any of the existing issues, some of which aren't even balance related. If you had to ask me why I think they're doing this instead of balancing the game and fixing bugs and other problems that need to be addressed, the answer simply is money, dear boy. That's all it is. It's just money. There's no other reason for them to do it, but I'll go more in depth on the topic. I won't just end the video here, even though I probably could. Well, a few infamous issues that have been problems since release are as follows: the lack of external revenge indicators to make teamfighting, ganking, and the 4v4 experience, and by extension, the matchmaking 2v2 experience, significantly more smoothed out, less annoying, and generally more fun for everybody. At least that's how I see it. As well as this, revenge gain in 1v1s needs to be fixed, an intrusive and overall obstructively laid out user interface needs to, put it this way, it needs to be fixed very soon. Some heroes having extremely strange tracking, such as Shaman, who often phases through characters completely in certain interactions, dealing absolutely zero damage, and getting punished herself for arbitrary spaghetti code reasons in the process. Hitbox issues as a whole need to be addressed, and so on. I could honestly go on for ages about all of the insane things that are wrong with this game. Having tested many of them myself with a few friends, I honestly am in awe at the fact that these issues have remained in the game for multiple seasons, if not as long as the entire life of the game for some of these. Something I'd have hoped that Ubisoft would have learnt by now is that a patch cycle that often involves several months before anything major is changed about the game, along with grievous amounts of unchecked bugs, UI issues, and balance issues, simply cannot continue the way it is if they want the game to stay alive for any length of time. While I feel this game will probably remain casually for quite some time, since at a superficial level this game is entertaining to some degree, and most casual players simply aren't aware of the horrible things that plague this game, I still don't see why that's a good thing, when a game like this could easily be so much better than it is, and satisfy people who take a competitive interest in the game, and people who just want to jump on with friends and have a good time. That's ultimately all I really want at the end of the day. A game that has reasonable balance, frequent bug fixes, and a better user experience as a whole. Ubisoft's actions around the last few updates have genuinely confused me. The recent Shaman nerfs changed her gank from being stupidly oppressive to still being good, whilst having a new interaction that enables for a technically high skill cap gank that is even more destructive than the previous iteration of Shaman's Bite. However, only with Nobushi for the most practical application, or another bleed character. This is impractical, and I doubt anybody's actually going to practice using it, because the window to kill somebody before they can pop revenge after this is 100 ms. But still, the fact it exists shows that they don't particularly take much care when they finally get around to fixing big issues of the game that have existed since the inception of a character, or for almost an entire year now, no less. The same sort of issues happened with the fixes to unlock tech ages back, when interactions surrounding certain sprinting moves caused them to track significantly more than intended due to the brute force fix approach they took to it. Of course, this was later fixed slightly, and generally this isn't as much of an issue, even considering the prevalence of unlock sprint attacks in duels as a general mechanic. But I brought this up because Ubi are no strangers to being poor when it comes to fixing issues that need to be fixed for some time. I don't think I need to remind you all that it took Alernikin winning a tournament with unlocked tech to point out to Ubisoft just how broken their game was, even after writing a huge document about it and showing it to them. Every other player who went a significant amount within that same tournament was also using unlocked tech, because at the time it was essentially the only viable way to play the game as the vast majority of characters. The lack of timely attitude and professionalism are what is most likely the biggest problem with the way the devs handled this game. Now, unfortunately, the general community is not entirely off the hook for this, because some things have clearly been directly influenced by some sort of outcry. We need only look at some of the changes, such as Aramusha being nerfed 6 times in a row, Aramusha entirely being reworked to simply be a less good version of what he used to be in terms of gameplay and flow, while getting 400 MS side deadly feints, as well as higher upfront damage on his side heavies for pretty much no reason. All the bizarre changes to feats that rendered a bunch of them effectively useless, whilst replacing their effectiveness with other similarly strong or otherwise overpowered feats that simply aren't particularly fun to deal with. Soothing Mist, I'm looking at you. On multiple occasions, the devs have been provided with tons of information from the competitive scene, of which they have a direct line with, only to essentially ignore what's been said to them, or otherwise revealed, and later they post Q&A sessions on Reddit to get information on various issues, some of which are perfectly legitimate, some of which are misinformed and not real. The most infamous example of that is the sheer amount of light spam complaints that you see on these posts, when light spam isn't a good tactic and never has been. At least the devs are aware of this. Sometimes, though, I really feel like Ubisoft have dug themselves into their own grave when it comes to receiving points, because they don't listen to the people with the most experience, only ever doing it once in a blue moon, whilst listening to people who they often don't even entertain in the correct way. And all this comes back to the fact that they're releasing new heroes soon. 4 of them, with 3 months in between each release. What this leads me to believe is that the new heroes will simply be the focal point and will get minimal, if any, changes to the issues plaguing the game. The game does not have an issue with hero variety as it is, more that the hero variety technically exists, but is stifled by poor balancing. The majority of the cast are unique enough as is. While I'm all for diversifying a roster, doing it before focusing on the actual issues is asinine to me. Ultimately, I don't feel like this new set of heroes is going to bring much to the table. While most of the Wu Lin turned out to be viable to some degree, characters like Jiangjun and Nusha are mostly viable for the wrong reasons entirely. Tiandi is pretty much fine, and Shaolin is a character very much like how I want a lot of the characters to resemble if they're focused on offensive mix-ups. Regardless of how these characters turn out, regardless of if I turn out pleasantly surprised with how they're individually balanced, I'm not going to be satisfied, and I'm sure nobody else who's paid enough attention is going to be satisfied by the fact that we're getting new characters when balanced, and the tuning up of the user experience is what should be coming first. I hope you enjoyed watching me get bodied repeatedly in arcade mode, by the way. When I recorded this, I was spectacularly drunk, and I like to press buttons a bit too much. Thank you for watching. I hope this was something you agreed with. And if you didn't agree with me, feel free to tell me why. I don't bite. Peace.
Lamau, get bodied!